All right. Good morning, everybody. Hopefully everybody's doing great. Beautiful day out there. It's sad for me to have to shut my curtains on my studio, but the light coming in can be a little bit overwhelming and glary on the paintings. Yeah, so welcome to class 6. Is that right? 6, I think. Wow. So we are going to be starting our kind of big finale. So this is where you get to experiment and play with what we've learned so far, all the different color theories and ideas, as well as slowing it down a little bit. And we're going to go through the checklist, kind of the self-critique checklist, and how do I use that? And we're going to be going through my working title, the painting protocol, right? The thing that I wrote up and shared with you guys. And I'm going to be breaking that down and going through it and showing on Photoshop what that means to me. And then we will be approaching the canvas. I'll be starting another black and white of a very, very complex painting. I literally last night was like, why are you going to attempt this in front of a live audience? But I think it's important that, I've showed you quite simplistic scenes with a couple big obvious shapes. And I'm going to be showing you two fairly complicated scenes. And how do I approach those and make them something that I can even comprehend and get up to the canvas and start, and then try to remember what is it about it? What are the big elements that drew me to these pictures? So I'm gonna start by doing screen share. And let's very quickly go to our Facebook group. Are you guys seeing Facebook over here?
Yes.
Great. I appreciate you guys sharing on there if you're able to. There is a couple really nice paintings and beginning of paintings that people put on there. So we can talk about that really quickly. This craziness is the first image, or actually the second image I'll be talking about today. This is one of my favorite little semi-secret spots. I've painted this little creek. I believe it's either called Wolf Creek or Humbug Creek, and they may be the same creek with two different names. I don't know. Off Highway 26 going out to the Oregon coast from Portland. And anyways, that's one of the very complicated scenes. The other one's the one I sent in the email. See if I can find it. This one. This is a little park right near my house. And this, I just have loved this photo. I've actually gone out and tried plein air painting it a couple times, even just being aware of how fleeting, because it's crazy when I wanted to paint it while the sun is somewhat setting. And if you know how quickly the sun likes to set, and then all those radiating lines on the trail, they just moved so fast as the sun sets down. So I've done a couple little plein airs that I think I probably painted over by now because they were disasters. But just being there, my wife and I hike here probably at least once a month. This is one of my favorite little side trails. There's actually paved trails and everything else. And they just built a beautiful new bridge across a flooded area that I'm very excited to go and try and paint on, even though it'll be hard to manipulate or to take over much of the bridge because there's a lot of hikers and bikers and whatnot on there. But you guys can see how busy both of the scenes that I've chosen to paint are, right? There's just so many trees. This one has leaves on the ground, ferns. It's got all these dead and dying branches, and shadow, light, warmth, cool. It's got everything going on. So you can see why it's been intimidating. I've been thinking about it for years and never quite being brave enough to approach it. So, you know, why not in front of a crowd, right?
What's the name of that park?
I think it's Tualatin Hills. It's a funny one too, because different seasons, it has so many mosquitoes because it's a wetlands, protected wetlands with forests. And my wife loves it because she's just infatuated with herons, and we can always go see a couple herons. It was really cute the last time we were there. A little girl was beside us that we didn't know with her family, and she named the heron that we see the most. She goes, that heron's name is Aaron. So now my wife and I talk about Aaron the heron. Yeah, it's got a lot of trails. It's got a couple different ponds that have slowly been filling up. It's got a kind of creeks, but they're really hard to get to and see. This connects to another little bird sanctuary. We call it the Beaver Dam because it was just a little flowing creek. And then the beavers put in a massive dam, and it really filled in this area beautifully. And now there's lots of interesting things going on. And it's just so fun to visit a place year after year, season after season, and watch as things change and watch, you know, how do these places look? Because right now, you know, it wouldn't be any leaves and stuff, right? It's the winter, everything's died back. So it's interesting to go on these trails that are so filled and, you know, hard to see through. And now you can look across, you know, big swaths of the park and see how everything's kind of connected. So anyways, those are the two paintings I'm going to attempt. Let's go. I just clicked the wrong one. Let's see if it goes back. This is my black and white. I did a raw panel. I did a clear gesso on this one. So the kind of yellowish tannish color you're seeing is actually the color of the birch with clear gesso on there. I do like the clear gesso from time to time. It's much more sandy and granular feeling. So it kind of forces me to paint slightly thicker, more impressionistic. But yeah, this was kind of the quick scene, and I'll show you kind of my breakdown and how I came to this from that very complicated scene that I showed you in the beginning. Once we flip over to Facebook or to Photoshop.
Was the clear gesso on top
of the wood? I could have done it on top of the acrylic painting. That would have worked probably fine. And then I went ahead and put in the very first layer of the yellow transparent paint, just so I have something to build it up. So basically today I'm going to use the cooking show model again of showing you the first stages in one painting, and then I will jump over to this painting, which hopefully is pretty dry. The yellow should be pretty dry. I painted it yesterday and did use a little medium to speed up the dry time and put it under a fan. So hopefully it's dry enough to start bringing in. What I want to do is another wash of blue, two different blues, the manganese blue for the kind of brighter areas, and then the French ultramarine for getting into the darker shadow areas. And then hopefully I'll be able to paint directly over that really quickly. We'll see if we have enough time. There's a lot I want to go over today.
Did you say what size that is?
They're all 16 by 20s lately.
Uh-huh.
Went back too far. All right. So doesn't Kathleen, are you here at all? Doesn't look like Kathleen's here. Almost finished with the second painting, another 11 by 14, easy classroom size. For my final painting, I will use a 16 by 20 atmospheric perspective and no glazing to speak of. Oh, if that's not glazed, that's pretty amazing. Great start. Yeah, a really sad note from Deb here about the passing of her, I believe, sister-in-law. So anyways, yeah, Deb's not here. So wishing Deb all the best. And I'll get to that when we get to Photoshop, get to this when we get to the easel. Just quickly, here is the painting that I had up that we worked on last week. And this one's only glazing. So just transparent glaze on top of transparent glaze. It's changed a little bit. I've come in and I thought this was too orange, too yellow. So I came back in with more pinks to kind of cool this down, keeping the focus right in this area. And yeah, this 3D thing's pretty silly. Nope, still there.
Oh, you didn't paint white over that for the grasses in the front?
No, that's the white from the
Wow, nice.
acrylic painting. Remember, when I glazed in, I took a Q-tip and removed it, so I got it back to the white. And then I spot glazed into that. So when I did more glazing, more color, brought in some blues, I did bring in the yellow. Remember last week it was just purple and red. And it was a little bit interesting because some of the glaze was a little bit wet still. So when I was putting in kind of the yellows across the tops of the grasses, it did pick up a little bit of the purple, but I thought that kind of worked okay for blending and different things. See if I can find that video. I probably don't need to see it again, but you guys remember that, right? How I painted those with the black and white. And then this one, I don't think there's any sound here. I actually went in with opaque paint and covered. I was a little bit nervous about covering the cattails in stuff. You'll see I just kind of go right over them. So to do the finished image, which again is up on the easel, I had to come back in and paint those. So after about this layer, I let this dry for a day or two, at least to tack up enough. And then I came back in, redesigned these hills or trees back here a touch more. And then I came back in and painted the cattails and the grasses again, but you can kind of see by how thinly I put the paint. I just kind of pushed it from up here to down low. By the time I got down here, there just wasn't that much paint on my brush. So I was able to kind of see the ghosts of my underpainting and use a lot of that. And then I also changed a lot. I just added my own brush strokes and yeah, so there's that. And let's see, did I already pass Laura's? Let's go to Michelle's real quick. Nice start here, Michelle. And you are here, great. Michelle's on the phone, but
I know, I'm sorry, it's a warranty claim.
we'll come back to you then, no worries. Warranty away. Oh, Michelle, all right. Let's go to Laura, this is so pretty. So it fit perfectly with our tonalist class we did. So
does it look tonalist? It looks, in the real canvas, it looks like it has too many colors to be tonalist.
Oh, and I don't really know or care too much about the rules, but yeah, I mean, yeah, it's very beautiful. It's got a very tonal feeling. It has a real nice harmony to that. And, you know, a lot of browns and ochres and very nice. Yeah, tell us a little bit about this.
Well, I grabbed a few, I downloaded a few screenshots from the Landscape Reference Photographs for Artists group on Facebook. And then I posted them in my album so you can see the reference. And then I read on that group that you're not supposed to take the photos and put them anywhere else. So mea culpa. But yeah, did you see, I did the underpainting and that got all the texture and everything you can see in my album. There we go, that's my album. Just not that one, the next one. Wrong album. I don't know where you are now. Oh yeah. Okay, so scroll down, you'll find the other album, I'm sure.
Yeah, this is so lovely as well.
No, thank you. God, I'm sorry it's so hard to navigate here.
It's so funny, right? Yeah.
Can you go to media and click
Yeah,
my
I
own?
guess I'll do that. Yep.
Okay, so under albums, yeah.
Here, 26.
Yeah. You go here and then you go to the very bottom.
Uh-huh.
There we go. So reference shot should be there somewhere. I mean, the black and white should be there. So that's the reference. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like you're painting. See the confusion. Beautiful reference. Very nice. Yeah, lovely. Great.
Yes. Well, I was taken with that, you know, an incredible vanishing point.
Yeah, isn't that nice? Really draws you back into here, and then the clouds kind of move you back in. And yeah, it's really nice because the road leads you right in. This is so beautiful, but this, you know, because of the guiding lines, it keeps you here. Yeah, this picture has a lot of nice shapes. So people are free to paint from this?
What are you asking or saying?
I guess asking. There's a
yes, if you're a member of the group, you are free to paint from the images. And
that's really beautiful.
Actually, I'm a member of a couple of different photo ref groups, and I forget which ones have which rules, but
Sure.
they don't even require you to credit the artist if you exhibit your work, but you can't exhibit the original photo. I mean, they don't require you to credit the photographer.
Wow, that's wild. Very cool. Yeah, so that's great to know that the photo reference groups on Facebook. So you can just look those up, I'm guessing, in the under the magnifying glass and check them out. Or if you have any that are spectacularly better than others, maybe you can share one or two of those with the group on the page. Very nice. Yeah, tell us a little bit about this. Why you chose it? Why you painted it?
Well, I liked the vanishing point. Also, because I wanted to do more experimentation with ugly brushes that you had shown us the previous week.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I thought this would be a good one because it has a lot of little wispy details in the foreground. And the sky was a little daunting. Skies are always a bit daunting for me.
Yeah.
I mean, clouds. Plain skies aren't so bad, but clouds are tricky. And I see even there, you know, that cloud should not be tilted up towards the middle. It should be more flat underneath.
Right. And the great thing about clouds is feel free to redesign as you see fit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you've missed a bit of an opportunity to kind of keep the movement. This break a little bit makes it two separate images a touch, you know, not bad at all. It definitely feels.
No, I know. And that's what I worried about when I was painting, is like, how am I going to integrate these two areas of the painting?
And you did it by color and light and everything else, but yeah, you can always use, you know, and you could maybe even just, because this brings us up here, so maybe some kind of a line that's kind of hinting at here, you know, and a very subtle line. When I say a line, it's not like the brightest cloud or anything, but the eye will very quickly skim through things. Even implied lines are really useful, especially in clouds. Yeah, and it's a trick. So, you know, that's great. We'll have something to work on in the next class, the painting clouds, trees, and water class.
I so look forward to it.
Yeah, me too. It's been fun looking at, you know, because I just love looking at other artists' work and stuff and getting inspired and seeing how, you know, when you start thinking about a thing, you start noticing a thing, right? And noticing how this is a beautiful image as well. I'm guessing that almost looks like the same photographer.
Yeah, it was posted in the same set, so probably roughly the same locale and same light conditions.
Yeah, beautiful. I love the little rim lighting and the soft transitions, and yeah, good. I would probably want to do something here, or maybe crop off the bottom of that green, or just, you know, continue this kind of roughness.
Actually, it ended up being, I liked it in my painting that I did of it, because that was where I could put contrasty texture.
So you did a picture
So
of
the
that one? Oh,
painting,
is that this?
there it is. Yeah, that's that sort of. Yeah.
Great. So are you really noticing when you do your acrylics, how much darker they get when they dry?
Yes.
Yeah, it's so crazy. I keep feeling
Gouache is
like
worse.
I keep feeling like I'm compensating, and then I have to keep going back in and adding more light color, especially if you're thinking glazing over a, value-based painting like this. You have to remember that any of the glazing's also going to darken the image, even if it is yellow. It'll look brighter,
Even
but
the
not like
yellow darkens it. Yeah.
that. So
Okay, well, here's the problem I have. I go to glaze and I like to, integrate my sky with my ground colors-ish. But the minute you put any yellow in the sky, it turns green because you're glazing, transparent yellow over black, gray, I mean.
yeah.
So does one keep the yellow out of the sky and just go with the red there? Or I don't know, I'm still trying to figure it out.
I also am still trying to figure it out. You've literally been doing this technique almost as long as me. I think I told you that it was only a couple months before we met that I was experimenting with this. Maybe in the sky we mix a tiny bit of yellow into our acrylic, or a little bit of red into our, our acrylic. Maybe we just warm that up a touch. We're experimenting together on this. Maybe it's not a black and white. Maybe it's, other colors that you're doing into the sky area. Again, I think I told you guys last week that a painter that I really like does burnt umber as his underpaintings. So I don't know, what that would do. Something maybe to experiment with.
I've also experimented with using acrylics for glazing, transparent acrylics. And the nice thing about that is if it gets too dark, you can just apply more white and then reglaze it, and then you get really deep sort of levels of color. It's not the same as pushing paint around like oils. I mean, there's definitely some joy of getting the oil glaze on there and then just moving it around the way you like it.
Sure turned out beautiful. I can tell you added more opacity to your paint.
Yeah.
Added some white.
Basically, I painted out that dark cloud basically. But then, I didn't realize until I took the photograph that there's a boundary between the sort of the pink and the white with a little bit of the gray shows through. Look how blue it looks. There is no blue. I used no blue color here.
It's lovely. It really, this whole painting is just lovely.
Thank you. And the other thing about this one that I prefer to the one with the furrows is this one's much more abstract, and I'm going to try and remember to stop at a level of abstraction rather than, go further and further and further to make it more realistic or more like the photo.
Good for you.
It's so pretty.
So pretty. It's so poetic.
Thank you. Yeah, this one is the one I feel is really tonalist.
Do you know the artist David Sharp?
No, I shall write him down.
Well, let's look at him. Are you guys now seeing Instagram popping up?
Yes.
Yep.
I'm just going to pull up David Sharp because he is my hero. Yeah, David. One of my heroes, this guy. David Sharp art.
Ooh.
Oh, he's freaking amazing.
Oh, wow.
There's so many of his paintings that and he's so experimental. And I just watched an interview. Charlie Hunter interviewed him. Charlie Hunter is a very tonalist, master designer, paints only with ochres, or not ochres, with umbers and different colors. He does water soluble paints mostly. Just like is this a photo?
That's a photo.
Oh, this is Procreate. So he does a lot of experimenting on an app on his iPhone or iPad with Procreate. So that was really interesting to learn. And then he was showing examples of that during the interview, and then he'll take that and do his paintings.
Yeah.
And just, I mean, just the poeticism in his work is unbelievable.
Oh,
Just
wow.
so simplistic. A lot of times it's just a couple big shapes.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm trying to remember is don't get caught up in the detail because it actually detracts from what your overall inspiration is. Like this one is so simple.
Yeah, that brings me into a quote I want to read to you guys. This is by Mitchell Albala, from
I
his
took
new
his
book.
workshop.
Huh?
I took his workshop last
Oh,
year.
I would love to take one of his workshops. Yeah. This is from his brand new book, The Landscape Painter's Workbook, which I am on page 3 of. Opened it this morning. I do a little bit of reading every morning, at least a chapter or two. And I decided to open this book, but I just didn't have enough time. So I'm very, very excited to be to read through this book. But anyways, his second paragraph in the book I thought was really profound. Nature is terribly complex. It has innumerable shapes, from the minute to the monumental, and in its raw, unedited state can seem quite overwhelming. The key to translating all this into a painting is not to capture every bit of it, but to reduce it into a simpler set of shapes and masses. This is the landscape painter's first and most important task. Remarkably, this reductionist approach doesn't detract from the overall impression. It enhances the painting, making it more comprehensible to the viewer. So I think that's kind of the synopsis of his book in a nutshell there. There's a huge section on just Notans that I'm excited. And it was really cool. I did kind of skip to that a little bit. And reading about what his concept of Notans is slightly different than a lot of people just understanding of Notans, is he really uses Notans just to get the shapes and to see how the important shapes work together. And I thought that was amazingly well succinct, because a lot of times, you know, you take your photo into Notanizer or whatever you do, and it just doesn't work, right? It loses too much of the interest. So, you know, looking at the photo or looking at the scene at hand, what is important and what's what you want to convey. And so then you go in and pick out the shapes, and then you basically tell, how do you want to present these shapes, you know, using values, using color. And I'll talk about that again more. Let's look at just a couple more of his. This doesn't look like his, this looks like Michael Workman. Yep, Michael Workman. I love his work as well. Michael Workman art. If you want to check out his stuff, so many artists I just adore out there.
Michael, when I was looking for reference photos and images for inspiration, I'd glance through things and I'd say, oh, I like that. And like everything I picked turned out to be yours.
What do you mean? Like my
References
photos?
online, your paintings, like yeah. So you've brainwashed me.
Good. Mission accomplished. All right, perfect. Thank you. In the interview, he actually talked about this painting and saying it's the most colorful painting he thinks he's ever done. And it's still beautiful, still romantic, and still holds together so well. And I mean, look at, it's so few, you know, actual solid masses, and then just soft edges. Yeah, I could just look at him all day and learn so much from his work, you know, and it may not appeal to everybody, but he does a lot of these experiments as well. He does a lot of abstract work. He's even started to sell, and I just think some of them are so beautiful.
How big are those pieces?
You know what? I think he does a lot of these digitally, actually, I found out.
Ah.
Yeah, this is done on Procreate. He just has a couple brushes that he really likes. And I even wrote down one of the brushes is called Nico Roll, Nicoroll, I believe. He didn't spell it, but that's how I wrote it out. I'm excited to start experimenting with that as well, because that's all I need, more stuff to play with. But it all works together, right? All of it works together. It's all play. Yeah, if you're ever feeling overwhelmed, just take a look at Michael Workman or David Sharp or Charlie Hunter and just see what are they doing to just get to the core elements. I mean, look at this little dash of purple down here that really just sets this almost overly simplistic. Another one he's done on Procreate. So he's sharing a lot of his Procreate photos recently. It looks like, I think he's having a lot of fun playing with that. And it's cool too. Sometimes he'll show them in different stages where he's, you know, he'll like put in a cloud, take a photo, take the cloud back out, put in a sun, take the sun back out, put in a little bit of water, take the water back out. I mean, is this not just gorgeous?
Look at
And
the
it
cool
takes
foreground.
years and years. And he actually started as an illustrator and was known for detailed work, you know, pen work and stuff. And I mean, it's even fun just to see the photos that are exciting to him, what draws him in and is interesting to him. Mitchell Albala does a lot of that too, where he just takes very complex things and just works them and keeps analyzing them until he's broken them down into their just absolute most component pieces. And then David Sharp also talks a lot about, you know, just the reference is just very much a starting off point. He just, you know, he plays with it and works it until he's got something that he likes, some kind of a
Oh, I
plan.
want that one for over my sofa.
That one I just showed.
Yeah.
Isn't that gorgeous?
Ooh.
So, Michael,
Please.
what is it that makes those simple things so beautiful and so exciting? How is it subtlety but change within those different forms?
I mean, a lot of them are very subtle. Like this one's very subtle. If we turn this into a black and white, it would all disappear because the values are similar. This one's about color and temperature shifts. But yeah, very subtle within the cools, very subtle within the warms, but it's that contrast of warm and cool. I mean, do you agree, Jill? Do you think that they are beautiful, or are you asking?
Oh yes, absolutely. I think they're beautiful, but I'm saying if, you know, maybe we did something like that, we'd end up with more of several boring shapes.
Sure.
There has to be some excitement within the shape.
We probably would. It would probably take us, just like it's taken him, years and years of playing and experimenting. This is just taped up onto his wall at his house, you know, so he's just playing. This was a package from Amazon that, you know, when smashed down, he thought had some interest to it. And, you know, it's just so cool to see people playing and then sharing their play. I love this.
Yeah.
Charlie Hunter was talking about looking at Franz Klein. You guys know who Franz Klein is, the black and white, big, huge brush strokes. And then looking at those and interpreting them back into landscape. So Franz Klein was, you know, taking the landscape and breaking it down into its most component, or cityscapes oftentimes, breaking them down into just its most component, you know, pieces. And over and over and over. And David's work doesn't always work. Like, you know, I'm not gonna say this doesn't work, but he is just experimenting and sharing. I've always adored this one. This is probably the first one I saw of his. It's quite a bit older. Yeah, Tonalism website has an interview with him as well.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Not decisions I would make, like having these little trees in the foreground. I would think they need to come up and break the plane to come into the, you know, to read in space properly. But because they're a little bit darker and a little bit more of a kind of a interesting shapes, they come forward. these fall back. He's got these kind of interesting lines. Yeah, when I look at his work, it's a lot of what's the least I can get away with, right? And just like a good poem, what's the least I can do? He also said that he's up in Canada somewhere, and then it's quite boring, the landscape sometimes. And so he'll actually canter his horizon line a little bit to add motion and interest. And I was like, that's so crazy. That's so brave. I always am so adamant about making sure my horizon line is straight. But yeah, you'll notice that he just throws that little bit of an angle there. It's probably a flat horizon that he's actually looking at.
Michael, I had to go take my grandson to school today because of conflict with my daughter's schedule. Are we talking about now design and simplification into shapes, or because I've just kind of joined and I'm not sure what's going on?
We are on a tangent, like I like to do. We
Oh,
started
okay.
off looking at this beautiful, very poetic image that Laura did,
Uh-huh.
and kind of her describing it, and that very quickly reminded me of David Sharp, and we got distracted, and now we're here, and thank God this class is 3 hours long because I love distractions. I love jumping down the rabbit hole. That's enough. I'll stop showing you guys his stuff. I'll let you explore and see his work, but it's just neat.
I can't tell you how much self-confidence this gives me to hear you mention my name and David Sharp in the same sentence.
There you go. Exactly. They're always in the same sentence with me. It's really, yeah, it's beautiful. But anyways, yeah, I'm excited that you want to pursue the kind of more poetic minimalist side of things, because that's somewhere that I would love to explore and experiment more with. I'll show you a 36 by 48 when we get back to the other scene of one that I've been working on. But I have a hard time getting too abstract. And I don't know if it's because keeping with expectations of my galleries and my collectors at this point, but I could definitely see myself leaning towards that at some point in my career.
That
Well,
would
you
be a
know-
fun class to do and sort of learn together.
Let's
It
do
would.
yeah.
Minimalism.
Minimalism, poetic landscape, the
Poetic
minimal,
landscape,
the
yeah.
poetic
Poetic
minimalist
landscape.
landscape. Yeah, let's do it.
So one thing that I shy away from it, that causes me to shy away from it, is I'm not in galleries or in stores or anything. So I give my paintings away, and my friends love the leafy branches. I mean the branchy trees, and they love that the forest with path. They're not big into big splotches of paint. So that's kind of
Well,
what
you can decide who you're painting for.
yeah.
And I agree. So many of my most detailed works are my most popular if I'm going by likes and comments on Facebook.
Right. And if you want to get stuff out of your studio.
That is true. I have cardboard boxes filled with these little studies, these little abstractions that I love doing as kind of my reward to myself. For a day well spent painting, let's paint, but let's paint for fun. Let's paint with a big brush. And, it's nice too, because I have these leftover colors oftentimes that have an innate harmony because I've already pre-mixed them. And I'll be doing more of that. And that's a great experience with using a brayer or a squeegee or, these other tools. That's a really nice opportunity to do that. And in fact, what I'm going to start doing is I talk about doing the Notan or the three value studies, which I like 3-value better than Notan, truthfully. I find the Notan's great and useful, but I find the 3 values to be more useful for me. But when I go over to my color studies, I want to do my color studies as abstractions. So still using the big dominant shapes, but how loose and beautiful can these colors be in that big swath? So that's something I'm going to be moving towards. And I think that'll give me that little opportunity to play and loosen up a little more, but still in service to the finished off sellable, everybody likes, you know, detailed, semi-detailed paintings. That makes sense? So
Yeah.
I'm finding ways to do what I want to do while still doing, while still keeping people happy. David Sharp is, you know, he's an older gentleman and he's gone through all the different stages. And I think a lot of his painting is for himself. I think he's very pleasantly surprised when people do want to buy his, especially more abstracted work. He talked a little bit about that in his interview with Charlie Hunter. He's like, oh, and somebody, you know, notified me that they wanted to buy this. So I think he is at a stage in his career where he's truly painting for himself. But I do think about that often as kind of in the back of my mind of what would I paint if I was retired? What would I paint if it was truly just for me? And I do try to take some time and do that. That's where the paper pads and stuff are very useful. Albums, I wanted to do this. All right, and I'm gonna start at the start. Laura, really quickly, just tell us about this. It doesn't look like very many people got an opportunity to see this yet, but I thought this was really fun. And it's really cool to flip forward quickly. It becomes a little flip book. So nice job taking your photos in a lined up fashion. Go ahead and explain.
Well, that was just, you know, the camera that the one where you have the where you crop with the sliding corners. I love that. Anyway, so last week I had suggested to Deb that she should try gouache for underpainting. And then I thought, I wonder if that really works. So I thought I would try gouache underpainting. And then people before had asked me, how do you do those branchy trees? So I thought I'd do a little photo essay. So that's what this is about.
So what do you
to answer those two questions, how do you do branchy trees and does gouache work as an underpainting?
All right, and what are you showing us here? What's the map mean?
That is because the gouache didn't stick to the cheapo little 5x7 canvas board that I was using because the gesso was too glossy on the cheapo board. But I put matte medium over it, and boy, that made a really nice foundation for the gouache. Oh, you know what else I learned? Mars black is more staining than ivory black. Just in case you need to know.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Mars black and ivory black. Okay, good to know.
So now we're looking at the trick is you put down a series of grays, each one darker than the last. So the first one, I do the most distant object, just bang in some hills. And the next one, next slide, please. Then I just bang in a tree line, slightly darker. And then I bang in some mid-ground trees, even though they look like irises here, they won't in the long run. And then the next one, I bang in sort of a near foreground tree with some, you know, grassy, clumpy stuff in the bottom. And then the last one, I bang in some branches way in the foreground. So that's 5 different shades of gray. That's the whole.
Not 50?
So watch this. I like this. What did he say? Sorry.
Not 50?
Not 50 shades of gray.
Yeah. I like this. I like doing.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to learn how to bang in.
And then, so then you bang those things in, but then what you do is you take your time and you're starting with the lightest gray, you just expand the places where you see them. So remember the hills there in the back at the sort of near the top there. I took that color of gray and just sort of painted convex shapes between the branches. So it just widened the shapes and made the branches skinnier, which is much more organic looking.
It really, really is. Yeah, that's something I don't know if I've talked about too much, is to create shapes. It's actually almost easier to sculpt them oftentimes than coming in with a tiny brush and trying to get things just so.
Exactly. And I found the trick is you want to paint sort of kidney bean shapes. If you look on the next couple slides, you'll see it. It's just much more obvious. Like I'm just painting sort of dots and hot dogs and convex shapes. And so each color of gray progressively, I go in there and widen out the space between the branches. And
yeah, I mean, you're really onto something though with this. I see why your friends do like it because it is very pleasing. Even, I mean, this is ridiculously busy. with the, 4 layers and the tree popping right up in the front, but it's really cool to see how you just start to make it make sense.
Yeah, and then I put white in the top in between the branches there, and when you're using gouache, actually the boundaries of the white will pick up some of the black, and so it has these nice sort of gray ghost-like shadows. So that's an advantage of using gouache, is that it picks up some of the underlying color.
So you're
Black.
mixing gouache and gesso, so it's gouache over the gesso.
No, there's the gesso came with the board.
Okay.
It was a plasticky gesso on those cheapo boards. Then
And
I
this
put a layer. Then I put a layer of matte medium, just so the gouache would stick. And then I just use black and white gouache. That's all I'm doing here.
Yeah, you can just see it starting to materialize. You're bringing in some of these.
Yeah, and then
other
you can use
branches.
the lighter color of gray to add a few more branches, and then you widen the space between them so they don't look all dorky. It throws off the eye. The eye doesn't realize what's going on and starts to see all these, very lifelike organic forms.
Yeah, you can really see if you kind of just give a light squint to this, how things are really starting to play together, line up, and yeah.
It's brilliant.
And then here I thought I would put some highlights on the trees. That didn't work at all. So, and then I took them out when I colorized. I just put them on the edges. And then I realized after doing this, well, I kind of have the sun in the background there. It's like you're looking at the brightest part of the sky. I should have put those highlights on both sides of that foreground tree. Because I've seen you do that, Michael, and it's very effective. So you have a dark branch or a dark trunk, but it has a line of highlight on both sides of it.
Yeah, it's so fun. I mean, and yeah, your paintings that you've been doing lately in this fashion just read like stained glass to me. Every time I see them, I think stained glass, which can be really a cool, interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is just interesting.
All right, let's watch
and,
it. Let's watch it evolve. Okay, go ahead before I do that.
So the other advantage of using this technique, the black and white gouache, and doing tons of very, very branchy things, is that when it gets really hot in the summer, you can stand in the middle of the forest and not be daunted by the trees.
And
For
boy,
plein
are
air.
they
I mean, because a lot of plein air painters will go out and they go, oh, I'm not painting those trees. That's too complicated. So they
yeah.
go out in the sun and they get way distant from the trees. But I've discovered now I can stand right in the forest and I can paint the subject right 6 feet away from my nose.
You and the birds and the squirrels are staying nice
Oh
and cool while those other silly artists are out there baking away.
I
All
know,
right,
it's like
let's watch it
being
devolve.
Do you like the gouache better than the acrylic underpainting?
I do for small. I think the gouache, it would probably be too expensive, and I think for large it might get too messy. It's basically kind of like tempera, and it's kind of fragile until you go over it with the oil. I mean, fragile in the way that when you get it wet or put another color on it, it can actually pick up the underneath color, and I just think it's more manageable for small canvases.
And then did you glaze in those colors?
Yes, and so then I glazed on top with transparent oils and a little bit of white.
Perfect. All right, Kathleen, are you here still?
I am.
All right, so tell us a little bit about this. It says that, and no glazing to speak of. So this is all direct color?
Yeah.
Wow, it really looks glazed. It's really got such beautiful transitions. Look at this really subtle
Yeah,
transition.
it's very nice, Kathleen.
Is this your sun up here?
Yep.
Cool. So
In
I
mid-
would probably come through and warm up these branches a little bit.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you, because I warmed up the top of the grasses and the tree, and I thought maybe I should do that there too.
Especially
Okay.
the ones that are in front of the sun, that they'll turn kind of reddish color oftentimes.
Okay. Yeah, because that wasn't in the photo. Actually, this is a snow scene in the
Mhm.
photo with a peach sky and the peachy water and whatnot. But I didn't want to paint a snow scene, so I converted it to you know, the way it is. Yeah, okay. Add some warmth.
So is this the image you're thinking about doing for your bigger image as well?
No, I haven't chosen that yet.
Okay.
I thought I'd wait and cheat and see what you came up with today, so I'd get a clue as to what I could pick to learn the most.
Haha. Well, I'm going daunting. I'm going a little bit crazy. Do we have anybody else that would like a quick feedback? Michelle,
Yeah.
are you?
Yes.
Very nice. I really like this. I think, having looked at David's work just a second ago, you could see how you could even possibly simplify more. It's quite, quite busy. If you want, you might want to look at some of these shapes. Like I might actually even get rid of this bump here. Something like that, or even get rid of this one. You know what I mean? It's because it goes wide, narrow, wide, narrow.
Did you see the reference?
No.
It's
You
I'm
passed
so
it
go to your name.
there with the Cannon Beach, that
Right.
group,
Okay.
right below it.
with the haystack rock there.
Bringing up all your stuff. That's the reference.
Yep.
It looks like a painting already with those bright colors.
It's a
Yeah,
photo.
so this happens all the time, right? These are those tidal bogs or whatever you call them, tidal areas. So I'm always drawn to these when we're driving along the Oregon coast out near Lincoln City and stuff. There's these beautiful ones. But yeah, they get really meandering and stuff. So oftentimes I'll look at these and say, how can I add, even if it's, I still want to retain its flooded bogness. Is there ways I can add motion that is useful to it? And you may be fine because it does kind of have this angle to it, doesn't it? Like a little bit of a kind of triangle here. But yeah, when you're looking at it, if you keep working on it at all, would be, is there opportunity for design, right? It's really easy to just, like maybe I would just see this shadow line here. Maybe I would just take that kind of up more, maybe, or bring it to here. Like maybe I would get rid of that. I don't know. And it's fine. There's, again, I like to talk about that. There's definitely multiple ways of painting and being a painter. And you can be more of a journalist, or you can be more of a poet. And I'm sure there's hybrids of the two, right? There's the poetic journalist, the Hunter S. Thompson or whatever, but there's also painters out there who are literally just trying to catch reality as close. They want to get the colors just so, and, all the shapes just so. That's never been me. I think coming from a children's book illustration background and stuff, I'm always manipulating and changing things to help hopefully tell the story or whatever it is, conveying the mood, the idea. But if you, just want to be more of a journalistic, it's a great way to learn, because then you're learning drawing and you're learning color replication versus, just making it up as you go. So I do suggest being both as we're learning, and then your style will kind of evolve and you'll see kind of what are you drawn towards more naturally. But for me, yeah, I'm constantly, my mother was a, English teaching would-be poet. And so, we read poetry when I was young and we had poetry books, and just thinking about that of, my mom would write these like 4-page poems and end up with one paragraph, right? And that's kind of stuck with me of, okay, what was the, feeling? She, it'd start off journalistic, she'd be writing about a friend getting sick or, whatever else. And maybe it would talk about memories with that friend. And then she'd bring it down into what's the minimum that I can do to tell this whole life story or story of this friendship in. And again, neither is right or wrong. So anyways, yeah, just an option and an opportunity. A great thing about those bogs is, oh, I'm already on your page. Okay. Oh, I think I just went to your actual page. Sorry about that. All right, so yep, you can see those here. Let's look at this reference really quickly. Okay, I see some interesting ideas already. Tell us about this, Michelle.
Oh, that's near my friend Jeannie's house, and I just took that picture, and so I'm trying to. I'm not sure if I'm going to put buildings in, but you can kind of see what I did, and I did do a light glaze on it this morning. Maybe it didn't. No, never mind. The glazing didn't. It didn't allow me to input it. But there's my underpainting.
Why does that keep?
Oh,
What the-
weird. Okay, well, I guess you can see it in a small way. It might even have accidentally loaded by itself last night when I was loading.
Don't you
All right,
love
but yeah,
that?
we can see what, how you've changed things. It's always interesting to me, like a huge portion of this painting is a parking lot.
It's the path. It's actually a path.
Yeah. Anyways, it's this, right? It's a huge portion of
Right.
it. Over, we're getting close to like 50% of it, or 40% of it is this. So I was kind of curious, how would you deal with this? I've
Oh.
actually painted standing in this very spot a couple times because the Dragonfire Gallery is really close to here.
Yes, it's at the end of Washington.
But I'll always stand right on this edge, and just get beyond it, and then I kind of focus out here.
I was trying to have a little bit of the houses and Haystack Rock, keeping in mind the rule of thirds sort of, and although the horizon's kind of middle there, but I was trying not to have just a big empty gap in the middle. I wasn't sure how to resolve that. And I agree with you, it does have a lot of pavement, but I have to tell you, I had fun trying to replicate it. But I'll maybe go back in and do something different.
Let's. Oh, where'd it just go? Give me 1/2 second.
Time's up.
All right, I'm gonna need a little more. Oh, it's hiding behind you guys on the other screen here. The folder I'm looking for. It's weird when it's not alphabetical. Okay, so this brings me to something really good, and I'm gonna go ahead and stop with the critiquing at that point, except for I'm gonna talk about Michelle's painting now. And this is gonna take us exactly into a big part of today, because today's assignment, part 1, is selecting our reference, right? Or, selecting the painting we want to do, right? Collect. Step 1 of Michael's painting protocol. Collect, gather references for subject, design, and colors, mood, and theme. This is often multiple influences or as many as needed to help me to clarify my plan for my work. What excites me about this idea? What am I hoping to convey? What feeling am I hoping to elicit from the audience? That is in the email, so you don't need to write as quickly as I talk. But collect. And then the next step is plan, right? So very quickly, just by what you said, is that what excites you is the buildings as well as the rock. Does this path / parking lot excite you?
It's I like it, it makes me feel like I am there at the beach walking along the path,
Okay,
but I don't have to have that much path.
right. We've got options there. My first option, when I have scenes like this, like I'm actually cropping a couple of very interesting images that I wanted to do. So this is a big, normal 16 by 20 design, but I didn't like the tops of the trees and I didn't like the bottoms, but I did like this passage. And I thought, I kept trying to crop into where I didn't want everything. But what I did, as you can see, is I went to a very horizontal format. This is a 1 by 2. So 1 high by 2 wide, or in this instance, it's 5 inches tall by 10 inches wide. And I happen to have some big, huge panels that are this same format. So knowing the panels that I had, I came back in, I went and looked and I'm like, good, I have these long formats. So that could work with this. And but anyways, let's go back to yours. What I was thinking initially, if that was the case, is something like that. You can even bring the trail down more.
Yeah.
But this still tells me what's interesting, what your painting is about, what drew you to the painting without this.
Yeah, I just had an 8 by 10.
Sure. No, yeah, no. And I'm not telling you right or wrong or anything else. I'm just saying, here's kind of the thought process that goes into, and if you wanted to, if you're like, yes, I've done the 8 by 10 and it was semi-successful, but it could be more successful. And for my final project, I would like to do something like this, then you have time to either, make something and cut it down and gesso it, or go buy it, or whatever else, right? The art stores have odd size formats. So anyways, just knowing that we have so many options out there. If you painted it on paper, the oil paper or whatever else, you can always cut those, which is, it's always funny when I come back from plein air painting and we'll end up cutting down panels just to, I might do that whole scene when I'm out there.
Also, I think this last assignment was to practice, in the background, the atmospheric look. So I was also working towards that.
Perfect. Yeah. Again, I'm not, hopefully not trying to criticize at all.
Oh no, I'm not offended.
Great. Yeah, just kind of things I would think about, and what I'll be talking about here using the images that I've selected as well. So anyways, that would be, I think, an opportunity for that. The other opportunity, if you like the grasses and want less path, is just to simply change your drawing. Let's see if we can even do it here. I don't think we'll be able to do it too much, but anyways, what I would probably do is just, put this dark line somewhere else, maybe even give it this nice swoop that's here, and then just bring all those grasses even closer. And it'd still be realistic. It'd just be as if you're standing 3 feet to the right. Just knowing that, and there's these cool little details, the little street sign or, trail sign there, and the light post. Those are all things that could be really interesting in this and still keep interest. The figures telling us that it's a trail could actually work within this. So anyways, there's a lot of opportunity here, I think. But what you told me when I was asking about it, when I said what is interesting, and the first two things you said were, the houses and the rock. It's like, oh, well, this big path wasn't one of the things you mentioned. So how do we go about circumventing that?
See, and I was just the opposite. I was looking at that and going, wow, look at those sawtooth stones in the foreground along the edge of that path.
Right. And
I'd crop it vertically.
Yeah, and that's just it. That's why we ask these questions, right? There's no right answer. But yeah, that could be interesting. That's getting back towards abstraction a little bit, and these interesting repetitive shapes of the triangles and the, you got
That really
standing
makes
up
that,
triangles and more
Not that
diagonal.
I'm trying to push any choice on this.
You and your
But
agendas.
Just those foreground rocks interesting. The shadows, look at the shadows. on them.
Totally mirrors the haystack rock. Really, those rocks in the foreground sort of echo the haystack.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, a painting I've always wanted to do is somebody building a sandcastle, but making it of haystack rock with haystack rock.
so clearly I have to get out and take a look at this haystack rock. Where do I find it?
Cannon Beach.
Cannon Beach is where?
Oh, Oregon.
What highway?
26.
Okay.
So don't you live near, aren't you?
I live in Eugene.
Oh, Eugene. Okay. So yeah, you're going to have to head north. It's the most beautiful, like 12 miles of beach in Oregon almost. It's amazing what's out there
Okay.
within this, or just, take my next workshop out there. I'll show them all to you.
Ecola State Park.
Yeah.
You're gonna do a Cannon Beach workshop?
Yeah, I believe Anton Pavlenko and I are going to teach one together again, which is so fun.
Fun.
So fun. Yeah, he is. I think you know some of his work, right? He
Well,
paints.
I've seen your video.
Yeah, he just globs that stuff on, and he's just a cool guy.
Right.
Anyways, yeah, we both show together at Dragonfire, and anyways, yeah, that's what I mean. So asking these questions of the reference of what is it, and for Laura, it was, she instantly was drawn towards something that I would very quickly look past or find to be slightly annoying. But now that I see this, I'm like, yeah, that is pretty cool. That's pretty interesting. And that's why art is so awesome. And that's why when you go with a group of plein air painters and staying in a field, everybody will come back with something totally different. We're all drawn to different things. And so anyways, great. Thank you, Michelle. And yeah, hopefully I didn't come across as a mean there. What's the order of events here? This one, I think. Yep. So I'm going to show you the two references, Kathleen, of pictures that I've been interested to paint for some time, but have seemed daunting, right? They're very, very, very busy. There's so many darn trees in this weird forest, and they're all leaning every which direction, towards the creek, away from the creek. Some of them are falling due to the soft clay out there. This is also off Highway 26 on the way to Cannon Beach, Laura, if you're driving from Portland. This is a space. There's a little bit of a trail here, but then I love to go off trail. My wife and daughter love it for looking at mushrooms and all sorts of stuff. And it's great in all seasons. It's really interesting. Anyways, I love it. And it's very, very meandering. This is part of a big horseshoe shape where the creek really takes a strange and unexpected big turn, but it gives me all these beautiful sweeping angles. All right. So there's that. Just trying to, so what I did was I looked into here and I did just tons and tons, because this is one of those photos where it has, I could probably paint it sort of as is, but it's so busy, it's so big, it's almost like overload where the viewer kind of goes like, yeah, that's something. But within this, I think there's quite a few different images that I could paint. So really quickly, let me ask you guys, what do you think is interesting here? Or nothing, or anything is there? Go ahead.
I like that shock of blue in the lower left corner in the reflection.
Isn't that gorgeous? Yeah, very electric. Okay.
Yeah, the way it is now, your point of interest is that blue or that really lime green right in the middle. So I think you'd need to crop it to move that.
Yeah, you want to move that rock. Yeah.
That rock, or I think she's talking about this strong reflection.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
right.
That's what she's
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah, very almost acidic, isn't it?
Yeah.
I like the sun coming through those dark trunks where it's very bright over on the, and the reflection right below it. So like,
I think
Bill,
you
are
could
you
get
cheating?
five paintings out of this.
For sure, right? And that's what's so cool. So a lot of times I'll go to a spot like this and I'll be like, okay, I love it. I love everything. So take a picture of as much as I can capture, right? And then I can relax and begin to tromp around and focus in on different things. So let's really quickly just look at Laura's blue, right? So how would I make, this could be just such an interesting. Oops, what did I just do?
Get a black and white, huh?
Where did that one go? I've never used this tiling system that it uses. There it is. Okay, so copy, and I want file new. Huh. Very interesting. Okay, let's back again. Let's try it one more time. I know what happened. Okay, there we go. Copy, file new. There we go. So, I mean, that's that's just a quick idea, not very thought out or anything, but that could be something that's interesting, right? It's very abstract, almost. It would take the viewer a second to even be like, what am I looking at? If you squint your eyes, there's definitely some interesting angles and different things in there. You get a little bit of a payoff of just a little bit of detail. It'd almost be fun to do almost as an abstraction with a little bit of more pronounced information at the top right corner or something like that. This could very much be like a colorist image where, I mean, it's just about color and some values, right? But yeah, okay, save Shan, nope.
But that blue kind of loses its magic when it becomes the center of attention.
It does, right? Yeah, yeah. You are right. What else did we talk about? What was the second one?
Light coming through the trees at the right.
Over here?
That's what I thought she meant.
Okay, so I was asking Jill if she's cheating because that's what I was very much drawn to. I love a lot of this stuff going on. It's so busy, but what I really liked was the idea of this light raking through the forest and just really making this area back here really come to life, right? It's just blasting away here, and you get these big shapes with little shapes. So let's go to my edits. So here's the first one, a square format. And I do have square format panels. So you can see I put the lines right in the middle to kind of see where I need to stay away from. If that was interesting, square is always difficult. I think it's probably the most difficult design because nothing is really directing the eye.
That little blue spot really shows up.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's too peculiar. That may be, having something, or maybe it would expand it beyond. So it's not just between these branches because it looks very held up there. So here.
And it's
There's
reversed.
I was gonna say there's a Smurf in the water.
Yeah, right. Oops. So this is the design that I ended up, oh man. The design I ended up going with more. I ended up changing this in, so I know that my canvas size is a 16" by 20". So the 4x5 format, which is a very pleasing format for a lot of people, 8x10, 16x20. So then I can, and it's very out of focus, but I actually kind of liked it. And I really feel like that now everything is beginning to support. Got a lot of darks. I've got some really interesting angles kind of coming through, contrasting horizontals, diagonals, and verticals. Still complicated, but I was definitely, once I found this and kind of zeroed in on it, I found it very interesting. And again, it's still quite abstract. If you squint your eyes at it,
Mhm.
there's definitely some abstraction to it.
Michael, why
here's a-
did you decide to flip the image?
I thought it just pointed in the right direction. I feel like we read from left to right. And I felt like,
When I used to work at Channel 2 and
that just didn't feel as good to me.
they would do graphics over the shoulder, and for the same reason, they would put the graphics over as you're looking at the viewer on the right side, because the anchor was the primary image, and then the over the shoulder graphic was secondary, because we read left to right. So that's interesting that you would do that too.
Right. Yeah. And I heard an interesting thing about design too, how different cultures, like in the US, if you put something in the middle, it very much becomes the focus. It becomes, this is about that. Whereas in Middle Eastern, it's what's on top. And yeah, and then like in Asian countries, you read from top to bottom. So yeah, it really, we're trained to see in different ways. But yeah, this just didn't, I had it like this for some of my initial little sketches, but then I just felt like this felt better. It points us into the painting, whereas I felt the other one kind of pointed us out of the painting a little bit. Like you come in with the light and you just shoot off with the light. Whereas this, I felt, I don't know, just seemed better. There's some things that you just kind of go, which feels better. You guys may be able to argue the point. Okay, so the other thing is I know it's a 16 by 20. So I've got my crop. This isn't exactly the crop I ended up using. I ended up adding more to it. I don't know where that crop is right now. I don't want to spend time looking for it. But what I would do is basically just go to image size and just, oh, so it is already a 4x5 or an 8x10, which is 16 by 20. So that is already fitting on the space. But otherwise, I would just adjust it within that, you know, make sure that it's fitting the size surface I want to put it on. Well, let's see. I did a Notan quick digital version of the other image I'm about to show you. But for this one, I ran out of time to show. So I just did a posterized black and white. And that just helps. Again, this is the way that kind of gives me what are the important big shapes that are going to allow me to begin to tackle what feels like a very daunting, busy image, right? So you can see here, again, squinting our eyes, how simple, not simple, there's a lot of shapes, but how simple this could be, right? And if I think of it as an abstract painting in the beginning and not painting things, we're just painting shapes and values, right? That allows my brain to go, oh, okay, I can tackle that project, right? Versus a,
Wow, the sound's kind of going crazy.
sound has gone crazy.
Yeah, for a minute. What did you last say?
Oh, it just allows me a way in. It allows my brain to go, okay, that's a project I can tackle. You know what I mean? It's like if you're gonna redo your kitchen, it just seems like too much, right? But if I'm just saying, okay, well, I'm going to start with the, you know, the countertops, get those out of there. I can do that. I can remove countertops, or, you know what I mean? What's the way that I can break this massive project down into an approachable fashion? So that's really where the simplification starts for me. I want to figure out what's the poem in this. All right, so
in this one,
please.
how do you feel about the green? Are you going to make your painting as green, or do you have another sort of tint that this is going to go to?
Great question. So in my notes on my little checklist that I wrote, I have that this is about the light hitting that trunk. That is what this is about. But part two is the refreshing nature of being in a shady forest, right? Near a creek is very much about being refreshing. And green to me is refreshing. If I did this in my typical warm hues, I think I would lose some of that. So I am going to keep it really quite green, and I'm going to lean towards the spring greens. So I may even be using a little more cool blues in a lot of these areas. I really want to lean towards that feeling I get when I just, after I've run around like a mad person taking all my photos, and then I begin to just sit. I might take my shoes off and put my feet in this water, right? And so what's the feeling I want? It could be anything. It could be, it's not about the color. It's not about the refreshing feeling. It's about the action and the diagonals and the contrasting horizontal, vertical, and, and maybe then I would want more electric colors. Maybe I would want to play up that action that's in here. But that's not what I want to capture. I want it to be relaxing. So I will be chasing after things that help relax me. Greens, blues, cooler colors. And then I'm going to use those to convey the very first instinct, which was I just love the light raking across. And I love like these little dappled lights coming across the water and then hitting this tree over here. I just love the contrast of, anyways. That makes sense. So it could go any color, but I think, and I don't paint green very often. So I thought this might be a fun experiment. I don't think I've done any glazing where I end up with much green. So today I'll do a little more glazing and then come in if we have time. That's my last thing would be to start the next drawing. Let's go to number 2, back to this crazy trail. So both the references that I picked for this final assignment for me are busy and craziness and things that I'm drawn towards both of these images. I've looked at them for a long time, but I haven't dared tackle them. Right? Every time I look at these, all I want to do is go paint a nice creek and and a couple trees, because this just makes my brain hurt. Right? But there's something here that I love. Carrie knows I love trails that lead back to big spots of light. I think there's a reward and maybe a metaphor in that. And I have different crops of this that I've experimented with. Every time I think about approaching this, I'm like, okay, well, let's start with the focus. My favorite part of this is this. Wow, why is it being so stubborn?
Oh dear.
You're being very stubborn. I don't know if my mouse is giving out on me. The button's not copying file, new. Right, so I could just do this crop and just kind of get rid of the extraneous information. It's still nice, and maybe at some point I will go back and revisit this. I actually had my daughter, and maybe I could even crop it more. Maybe I don't need this debris over on there.
That looks like those famous English landscape painters. Who am I thinking of? Constable, Gainsborough.
Constable?
Constable, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. And now I'm looking at this, I'm like, I should paint that. Maybe that's going to be better. But
It's a bit twee. It's a bit twee,
what's that mean?
Cute.
It is a little bit borderline that, yeah, for sure. And it was pretty neat. My daughter, I love bouncing ideas off her. She's quite the designer and she's a teenager, so has opinions on all things. And so actually, before I get rid of that, let's just put them side by side. So here's that crop and here's this. And it was actually my daughter that was saying, that's very kind of like you said in different words, tween. It's too much. It's too cutesy or whatever. But this still has that element, But with these brambles and kind of gnarliness and dark, now we're earning that.
Yeah, I like that one.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah, and this is my start image. I'm sure I took like 50 photos, and my wife and daughter had gotten bored and hiked, well ahead of me, because I actually know they did, because I have photos of them walking away. And then I think I probably waited like, get rid of those annoying people. Get this without them. But yes, there was, what's the story, right? The focus is here, but what's the story? The story is getting there. And
Yeah, you
without
both-
the struggle, without the dark, without the mess, I don't know if the payoff is there, right? It's just like
Right.
jumping to the very end of the story, the very end of the movie, where the hero wins without the journey, right? There's no payoff without a struggle.
I agree.
And again, this seems like something I could do pretty easily. And if anybody wants to, use my reference and wants to paint this, I'm not talking you out of it. I'm not dissing anything. But what I am saying is, how did the discussion that we had and how we came back to kind of like, okay, well, we like this. All right. So part one is my favorite thing is that's probably what stopped me in my tracks first. When reviewing the photos, what did I like most was this amazing radiating line, like a wagon wheel spokes, right? I just love it. And it's so strange and so interesting that I want that in my image. So part one, part two, that basically means I'm going to be using part three, this big mass over here. And it also means that I've got to deal with this big mass here, right? There's a lot of dark going on. Let me go back to, how do I get it to go? I'm going to get rid of this one. Sorry, Laura, your blue's gone. So I then did a little digital sketch of it, 3-color value, and just kind of seeing what is the action, right? What is the motion? And this looks, already this looks like something. I've taken out 80% of the trees. I'll probably still hint at a lot of them, but they're not as necessary. I can clean it up a little bit. And I've also knocked down some of the big passages of dark to bring back into the mids. And this also gives me enough interest in the lights and darks and some texture that the eye will feel free. I won't just skim around here and shoot off, I hope. I've also noticed a couple of these lines coming in that I think I could use of either bowing trees or trees that are kind of falling over. I'll have to think about that a little bit more, but I kind of liked this design. It makes me feel like, again, like, I can approach this, right? And my idea kind of works. It's so simple, so borderline kind of an ugly, very base drawing, but it still works. Squint your eyes down at this, please. And tell me that's not got some interesting motion in there. It kind of, our eye kind of goes in this triangle, kind of skims around, spins back up, gets caught, comes back in. There'll be a little bit of reward up here, but not too much. Most of the reward is back here. It's got that vanishing point or focal point innately in it. And then going back to our lesson on the light and shadow families and our looking at Monet, look at all these beautiful opportunities I've got to bring in interest within the shadows, right? The viewer, of course, quickly is just going to skim across, go back here. So I'll have to make that quite beautiful and a nice payoff of warms and light. But also within the shadows, it's going to give me a lot of opportunity to come in and play up my shadow family colors. Any thoughts here? And feel free to critique or argue a different point.
What about those two heavy vertical trunks on the upper left that are in parallel?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe I should angle one slightly, maybe even.
Yeah, I always run into that problem.
Right, yeah, what if I just slightly
Yeah.
angled it? I can also obliterate it with leaves a little bit to make it not so profound and strong. Yeah, how I saw it initially was it kind of stops the viewer, kind of bounces the viewer back in a little bit. I can also always just bring in, let's go back to what I just had it. Yeah, maybe give it a little bit of a slant here. I want to be careful I'm not replicating this angle too much, but a little bit of an angle could be nice. I can hint at something a little bit here, maybe the edge of the trail a little bit. So
What
that
is,
it's
can we
kind
go back to the reference photo?
yeah, really quickly before I do. And then I was thinking what I could do is simply bring in another branch or something a
Yeah.
little bit. I can also, but yeah, that's why we do this, right? So we can ask these questions. The artist that asks the best questions will win, will do the best. Asking these questions now versus once I'm up on the canvas,
Right.
so much easier. Even if this was not digital, but with pen and ink, it's so much easier now.
Oh, I see. So,
Where did my history bar go? There's the layover. There's the black and white. So yeah, what I was scared of, do I have the Notan of this one available? Let's just get rid of these. No longer looking at them. Sorry if this is taking too long for anybody. I apologize. If I have the Notan of it. So it's very dark. So when I did this Notan, it scared the crap out of me because I was just like, that is so much darkness.
yeah. But you notice in this one, instead of having that big chunk of the trunk that is on the edge of the canvas, very dark,
Mm-hmm.
it actually has this smattering of very dark leaves, which you can use to lead the eye in.
Yeah, probably if I just took this angle of leaves here.
It's just that big rectangular piece in the upper left corner bothered me. So, and besides, it's your painting, not mine.
Oh, no. That's why we're doing this. It takes a village. What if I raised these up?
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Okay, now we don't have to duck.
Yeah, it feels a little more inviting.
Yeah.
It opens
Yeah.
this space up. Nice job. Yeah, and then what I can also do, let's find another nice little textural spot here to make a clone tool of. Let's just grab this. Something kind of like that. I could bring a little passage of light, like a little bit of light is getting through there. So it's not so dark. And then in this dark passage, I do know that even though it looks all dark, that there are ferns coming across here.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be able to, where did it go? Is this the one with the layers? Sorry, I should have just shut these down when we were done looking at them. Maybe, hopefully I didn't get rid of it. Lots of creeks. All creeks. Uh-oh, we're running out of options here. Okay, there we go.
All right, there you go.
Last one, of course. But anyways, within that dark mass, you know, when I looked at the Notan, like I said, it just scared me because there's so much,
Right.
that's so much dark, right through here. So I could do like, there's this light passage here. I could bring another little light passage through. But what I saw and what reminded me of the Monet painting, if you remember the trail going to his house in Giverny, is how much fun he had in those shadows, all those colors. And so we do have, you know, different colors and lots of interesting things. So we do have a strong shadow, but on top of that, we've got these beautiful, cool blue, almost aquamarine greens in here that I'll get to play with. And then underneath you get the almost warmer shadows. And then like there's this little post down here of the edge of the trail. You know, maybe I play that up, use that a little bit. So there's all these little things that I can use. Yeah, you can see. Anyways, so the truth is what I'll probably do is clean this out a little bit, but I really do want to keep a lot of these brambles and things because again, I want the payoff of this, which will, I guess we're going to open it up a little more, make it, the reward a little bit bigger. Anyways, thoughts, ideas? So part 2 of your homework for those writing notes is to do your thumbnails, right? I at least want you to think about what if this was horizontal versus vertical or vertical versus horizontal. That is always your, from now for the rest of your life, your homework when doing thumbnails is at least to think of that. Okay.
What was part 1 of the homework?
Picking your
Select
picture.
reference photo.
Oh,
Finding your photo. And it can be one photo, it can be 10 photos. You know, you can make up a scene completely. Like if Michelle decided she wanted to do that haystack picture that she had, you know, maybe she likes so much of it, but maybe she's got photos from the day before where the sun was a little more interesting, the sunset was better, or maybe she likes figures closer to her in the path, or, you know, whatever else, maybe a dog, who knows. What story do you want to tell? You know, maybe a hiker in here would be kind of interesting, but I don't really put figures that often into my paintings. And I kind of like that whole being alone but not lonely thing. I'm still working on that idea, that concept in my art.
so regarding the orientation, vertical versus horizontal, does one or the other sell better in galleries?
I don't really see that, no. I think maybe horizontal for landscape feels easier for people, but you can really make beautiful verticals, especially if it's more of a sky painting. I find that I get away with verticals more often. And also if I'm just doing a lot of upright trees, like birch trees and stuff, I find verticals to be, you know, so you kind of use that picture plane, that picture space to your advantage. Again, square is the most difficult, very popular right now. I do sell a lot of 12 by 12 format paintings, which seems weird, but
square is the most popular.
Yes.
no, I wouldn't say it's the most popular, but it's the most difficult to make
it's
a
most
good
difficult,
design
yeah.
within. The thing about squares is we want to center the objects a lot. And when they're not centered, it feels awkward a lot of the time. So squares work really well for, you know, object paintings, like a picture of a pear, a picture of a dog, things like
I don't
that.
know. I just feel like I've got years of art teachers telling me, don't use a square format.
Absolutely. They're smart teachers. So, but I'm not one of them. I'm not your smart teacher. I'm your let's have fun and challenge ourselves teacher. Also, you know, maybe what would happen if it was long horizontal. Could I tell that story the same? Would it still be there? I'd lose my shadows, you know? What if it was a long vertical?
No, you're right about those shadows on the bottom that radiate out. Those are beautiful.
Yeah. So that's my two favorite parts is the reward. That's probably what drew me first. That kind of stopped me on the trail because it's a beautiful trail. But you know, this spot stops me, and I actually feel like excited as I know I'm approaching this spot to see what does it look like now. And
also when you look at the lit treetops and you follow the light down around to the radiating sun rays in the shadow, it's this beautiful nautilus shape.
Yes, yes, yes. Absolutely. I know we talked about that Kim English painting with the two figures sitting at the table with the red umbrella.
Right. Yeah.
Has some of that radiating lines as well. You know, different but the same. So anyways, that is where I'm at. I will now ask you. You guys saw me last week doing, oh no, did you? Anyways, I've got two options as the cooking show theme continues, right? I can either do the black and white acrylic painting of this, which I'm intimidated, but I'm gonna do, or I can go in and paint onto the one that I glazed with the yellow of the creek. We're already almost at 11 o'clock, so I won't be able to do both. What would you prefer to see?
I want to see you start this one.
I do too.
Anybody else? Meredith, any opinion
I
on that?
vote for the,
No, either one looks good to me.
I vote for the creek, but
The creek?
either one would be good.
Okay.
I'd be
Denise?
happy either way.
Are you there? And I think Kathleen's on the phone. I think I hear her.
No, she's not. But she said, I like this one. And I want,
Okay, so you'd like to see me do the underpainting of it?
yes, please.
Yeah,
Okay.
as long as you make sure and video yourself doing the more colors on the other one and then make a time lapse of it so we can watch it.
I pretty much don't do anything unless I'm videoing it anymore. Just kidding.
Wow, that's great. It's great for your students though to see
Well,
that.
and I do like the time lapse. They don't take up much space on my phone. And I do find myself going back and seeing, where did I mess up? Or, wow, that really worked. I think I've shared that video of me painting 3 paintings at one time. I actually go back to that sometimes when I'm like feeling a little bit intimidated by getting to the canvas, and I'll just be like, have you guys ever heard of hero sandwiches?
Mhm.
Yeah, so
Sure.
it's that whole negative talk thing that we were talking about at the beginning of class, is sometimes it's nice to have little hero sandwiches in your pocket that you can pull out when you are feeling like, oh, I can't do this. I'm not worthy, or, it's just too much. I'm going to go down and watch Netflix again. Is to have those little hero sandwiches. And those are simply examples of when you did it or did something big, did something impressive that you didn't think you could do. I could bring up hiking Machu Picchu or the Half Dome or something like that, carrying my big body up there, or, whatever it is. Or I can just look back through paintings that were successful, that did well. But that little video of painting 3 paintings at the same time, and you can just see how slapdash and crazy and how I just attacked it. And, they weren't all successful by any stretch, but just like, it's just painting. Get there. You've done it before, and what's the worst that happens? You make a nice underpainting for another painting to go over the top, or you sand it down or throw it in the garbage or whatever. Yeah, it's funny. Can you guys see the little tiny thumbnail up top here? And I'm just going to shrink this down. Right? It holds. It holds together, and it's nothingness.
Yeah, it's great.
So that's a great test, is black and white or just a minimal sketch. I mean, this is, just me scribbling away really quickly, just trying to see, do the shapes work? Are they interesting? So very cool. All right, let's take, what do we got? 10:50, perfect. Let's take a 10-minute break. I will I'm going to set up my acrylics. Let's do stop share. Before I do, let's talk about this really quick. There's the two paintings we were working on last week. Again, the left one is pure glazing. Just I wanted to see what would happen if I just stuck with that. It doesn't mean it's done. I probably will come back in and put some opaque paint and stuff. I added the yellow since we saw it last. I added yellow into the sky. It did turn some of the red very orangey, so I had to come back in with more red and wipe away a lot of that yellow. But I actually liked it. I think it creates a sense of depth and somewhere to go with it a little more than when it was just pink and purple. And then I brought that same yellow across my grasses a little bit and tried to create an illusion of in shadow, but not, it's not like there's a huge difference. It's not picking up the warm light as much on these edges. And again, it's still very much in progress, but I'm liking where it's going, having fun with it. The only opaque paint I put was back in those very far trees. I did scumble in a little bit of cooler bluey purple just to push those trees because it was one big dark band all the way across. So opened that up a little bit. And also to give a little differentiation between this foreground tree and the background trees. The one on the right with the cattails there, you saw the little sped up video of me painting the opaque paint. And then I just came back in, and Kathleen, if you are there and done with your phone call, just kidding. You can see how I warmed up here where they're in the reflection of that sun.
I've never been on the phone. Are you talking to me?
No, yeah, I was just joking.
Oh, okay. I was
I
going to
was-
say.
Leading into my rude joke.
Oh, all right. Now I get it.
Yeah, no worries. One of my many not funny dad jokes. Anyways, warming up that kind of little area, just like you could with your tree in front of the sun. Do you see that?
Uh-huh.
How does it stop going to you? Anyways, I will figure that out. And so anyways, there's that. This one's still got room to go. I'll bring in some cooler colors and a little more detail into the grasses in the foreground. And then decide if I want to differentiate any trees back here. And then I'll also bring the sun back a little more into the reflection. I'm using my mouse to scroll across, but I know you guys can't see the mouse in this instance, I don't think. All right, there we go. Just ruined our break. Now we only have 8 minutes. Ready, break.